She turns her head over her shoulder. A pearl catches the light. Behind her, nothing. An infinite velvet black. The kind of darkness that made this painting feel like it was staring back at you from outside of time. For 350 years, that emptiness was the point. Art historians called her the Dutch Mona Lisa. Philosophers wrote entire essays about that void. Then, in 2018, Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring was sealed inside a glass room in The Hague and placed under a battery of machines built to see what human eyes cannot. What they found rewrites the painting entirely. That black background. It isn't paint that faded, it's paint that failed. And underneath her skin, her earring, her very face, the scientists found something that had been sitting there, unnoticed, since 1665. Johannes Vermeer painted for a living in Delft in the 1600s, and then he vanished from history almost entirely. He left behind roughly 35 paintings, no diaries, no sketches, barely a handful of documents that even prove he existed. The French critic who rediscovered him in the 19th century called him the Sphinx of Delft, because that's exactly what he became, a riddle wearing the face of a painter. And this particular painting, made around 1665, is not even what most people assume it is. It isn't a portrait. In Vermeer's day, it would have been called a trony, a study of a type, a character, an exotic costume, and an invented expression, not a specific named woman sitting for him. In 2018, researchers placed her inside a purpose-built glass room so the public could watch in real time as machines scanned every layer of her surface. They were chasing one impossible question: who was she? But before they could even attempt an answer, they found what was hiding behind her. The first discovery undid nearly 4 centuries of assumption. The background isn't empty. It never was. Using imaging technology no conservator in history had access to, researchers found faint diagonal lines cutting through the upper right corner, along with subtle shifts in color. The unmistakable signature of folded fabric. Vermeer had painted her standing in front of a heavy, dark green curtain. It should still be there. It isn't. The green Vermeer used was a glaze, a thin, translucent mixture of yellow and indigo, layered to catch the light exactly the way real fabric would. But translucent glazes are fragile things. Over 3.5 centuries, exposed to light, to air, to time itself, that yellow degraded, and the indigo beneath it simply gave up its color. Thread by thread, the curtain dissolved into the same flat, featureless black we've been staring at for generations. Which means the void that made this painting feel timeless, otherworldly, almost supernatural, was never Vermeer's decision. It was an accident. Chemistry quietly erasing his set decade after decade, until nothing was left standing behind her but the dark. For years, that absence fed a theory. Scholars pointed out that she has no eyebrows, no lashes, nothing marking her as a specific, breathing person, and argued that this was intentional. That Vermeer wasn't painting a girl at all, but an ideal, a sculpture in oil paint, something deliberately not of this world. Then came macro X-ray fluorescence scanning. light precise enough to map individual brushstrokes buried under layers of varnish and grime. And there, around both of her eyes, in fine strokes of brown paint invisible to any human eye, were lashes. Vermeer had painted them. Delicately, deliberately, the way you'd paint something you were looking at closely, tenderly, in a real room. They simply faded from view over the centuries, the same way the curtain did. She never was an ideal, or a sculpture, or an idea. She had a face, an actual human face. And somewhere along the way, without anyone noticing, we lost it. Then came the detail nobody expected, the one that has nothing to do with pigment or light at all. Under microscopic examination, researchers found something else embedded directly into the paint of her skin. Not colour, not glaze. Bristles. Tiny fragments of Vermeer's own paintbrush, broken off mid-stroke, sealed into her cheek as he worked, and left there ever since. Think about what that actually means. Not a copy, not a signature, not a symbol. A literal, physical piece of the man's tools pressed into her face in his studio in Delft sometime around 1665, and never removed. Every visitor who has stood in front of her since, staring back at those famous, luminous eyes, has been looking at a fragment of Vermeer himself, still there, still touching her, 350 years after his hand moved on to something else. The scans revealed something else. This isn't the first version of her. Vermeer changed his mind while he worked. Infrared imaging shows he shifted the position of her ear, adjusted the top of her headscarf, and altered the line of the back of her neck. Small corrections made in real time as he stood in front of the canvas, deciding, stroke by stroke, who she would become. And the process itself was systematic. He built her in stages, broad, loose strokes of brown and black beneath the surface, then thin black lines to trace her contours, then colour, layered from background to foreground. The girl staring at you now is not his first attempt. She's the version he settled on after adjusting her, piece by piece, until she was right. Which brings us to the object in the title itself. Jewellery specialists who studied the painting say the pearl is simply too large to be real. No oyster produces one that size. It was likely a drop of glass, coated to look soft and matte, or simply an invention entirely, exaggerated by Vermeer to anchor the entire composition around one glowing point of light. And under high magnification, the illusion falls apart completely. There's no wire, no hook, no mechanism connecting it to her ear at all. It's paint, a handful of loose, confident strokes of lead white, layered translucent over opaque, doing everything a real pearl would do, without actually being one. Even the ultramarine in her headscarf tells the same story of illusion, built from distant materials. Lapis lazuli, shipped from Afghanistan, once more valuable than gold itself. So the object the entire world knows this painting by, the one printed on posters and coffee mugs and movie titles, was never actually there. It's a trick of light, or, more precisely, a trick of paint pretending to be light. So, who was she? The museum's own director gave the honest answer. No, sadly, we didn't find out who this young lady was, or if she ever really existed. But we did get a little closer to her. Because she was never a person to begin with, just a tronie, a character, an invention wearing a costume and an expression. And yet, machine by machine, scientists gave her back an eyelash, a fragment of her painter's brush, a curtain that dissolved behind her, an earring that never existed at all. Every day, millions of visitors meet her gaze in The Hague, convinced they're looking at a mystery. They are. They just don't know how much of her has already quietly disappeared.